Hi. I think when you look at the statistics, it's painfully obvious what has been happening over the past, 2 to 3 years, especially. Divorce filings are up 25%, and no matter the age demographic, it's the same, the next couple of categories. Anti-anxiety meds are up 300%. The 800 mental health hotline, people, call for help. Their percentage of calls went up 900%, I read. People are calling, in. I can't make sense of it. They're saying their feelings or their emotions, what I'm going through. The CDC says even that 1 out of every 5 students thought about seriously committing suicide, and it's 1 in every 10 adults. People, seriously thinking about taking their lives, and so you might be stressed out from a relationship, a financial situation, maybe a loss of a business or a loved one. Maybe you're worried, about your future. I know many are. I've even done that. The ones that just graduated and they feel the pressure of the world, asking them, what are you going to be when you grow up? Or here all of a sudden, they're grown up and don't know what to do. Thinking now I got to pay for things and make grown-up decisions, right? Maybe it's just that mom life, just trying to raise your kids, or dad life, just striving to be a good parent. Just the economy, though, is stressful. The cost of food. Look what happened to the price of, a loaf of bread or a carton of eggs. I was sitting here and thinking, are we making life decisions at the grocery store? There was a man named Paul that was beaten, bruised, and shipwrecked. His life was attempted to be taken over. He's sitting in a prison, worried, anxious, and depressed, and hopeless, almost ready to quit on life. But instead, while sitting there, chained and shackled, he writes the words we can now read in Philippians, to not be anxious and to present our requests to God, that He will in turn bring peace to our hearts and mind. We can be comforted that our emotions and our thoughts will ease of the anxiety because we release them to someone, that knows us better than we know ourselves, right? So, when we ask Him, He will lead us on where to go and what to do. We're encouraged to pray to Him, is my point, from what He has already promised that He will do. Pray to Him even more when we're feeling overwhelmed, because it then gives Him the authority to be and do in our circumstance. Be specific. He says, when asking Him for help, when you begin to speak to Him, it's comforting to know that He then begins to speak to you, right? So think about it in this scenario, a common event that happens to all of us. When you are in your car and the check engine light comes on, right? You're feeling good, you got some tunes playing, and you just put some gas in your tank, and all of a sudden that light comes on, and your first response is, when you see it. When the check engine light, though, comes on, it could be prompting something simple, but at first glance it can feel terrible. Or when the pressure in the tires are low and the light starts to flicker, just stressing you out. When you don't know what that light means, what can you do? Often your initial reaction is fear, and you even can think drastic, thoughts, but thankfully it's not a final decision. But it's a signal, though, that something is off. It may need some work, so you can take it in to the manufacturer, right? And who made it, the one who created it and designed it, for a checkup. They can answer the questions and even put it back together, right? I want you to write this down. Anxious and depressed are not your label. My name or my identity. They're a signal that something is off. Anxious and depressed are not my label. But I know some have been walking around like it is. Just out here, like Eeyore, you know. I feel that depressed life, struggle bus out here. I want you to know through another story in the Bible how this played out for Elijah, who loved God with all his heart, like many of you do. He was an Old Testament prophet. He was like the prophet of prophets, even. Maybe the most significant prophet in the Bible. And he was famous for confronting a man named King Ahab. And Elijah prophesied a great drought. And Ahab is all upset and sends a great army after, Elijah. So for 3 years, he's out on the run. All the while, God provides and protects him every step of the way. One time, Elijah calls down fire from heaven and defeats 850 false prophets. Can you imagine that? Calling down fire from heaven. I witnessed plenty of fights in my day, even at McDonald's, and not just as a customer. I mean, when I was the manager, that particular incident came to my mind all of a sudden, because this woman was livid and rushed in after going through the drive-thru. My pregnant belly was clearly seen under my maternity outfit. I must have been at least 6 months, maybe even 7, with Whittle. And in this hollering state, how dare I sell her a milk for her child that's going to expire in 5 days, and tosses it, and it hits me in my stomach. I'm standing there, dazed, just for a minute, and before the wheels can turn for me to think about, do I need to sacrifice my body and that of my unborn child for this? I had to snap out of it, because the next moment was not fire from heaven, but my very protective crew members. A couple of single moms, one in particular, was getting ready to hop the counter over to the customer. So it was just chaos, was my point, for several minutes. And I managed, to pull myself together to be a manager and escalate, the situation, But in the story, when it's called, the queen to King Ahab, Queen Jezebel, her name is, she sends him a message. She hears about it and threatens to kill Elijah. And even through Elijah has seen God's power, provides and delivers. He makes a few mistakes, but mistakes like you and I make that overwhelm him to the point of anxiety, and depression. Even wanting, to end his life. So in 1 Kings, it goes down, modern times, hitting him up in his, DM. She was, hasty about sending him an IG message to mess with him. Elijah becomes afraid, and he ran for his life. After receiving that message, he actually ran into the wilderness and prayed that he might die, and then, laid down under the bush and went to sleep. Anybody said or felt that way recently? That cry, I have had enough, Lord. All the stress, even some chest pain, I have. All the stress. I'm a positive person, even, usually. I'm mostly encouraged. I try to not overwhelm myself with stress to the max, and even try to sleep pretty good. But I've had those moments when I got too much going on, and begins to wear on me physically and mentally, overwhelmed with my own desires, expectations, and just growing my to-do list. Trying to be a good communicator, a positive example, a leader, a friend, a partner, a parent, a good follower of Jesus, like everybody else. But I, too, like you, have reached the point of being overwhelmed occasionally, beginning to feel the weight and the stress, literally. I try to think of, let me stop exercising for a few days, limit my caffeine, try to go to bed a little earlier. I think, well, let me try and make a few changes because these feelings get heavy. The moments, where there's a decision that needs to be made, just like it's a life lesson that just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that you'll not suffer, and it doesn't mean you won't have pain. In fact, didn't Jesus tell us in the book of John that we will have trouble? He just said something like, lean in because you all are going to get jacked up, but take heart because I have overcome the world. Yet he continued, we all do at times, to reach that point where Elijah says, Lord, I have had enough. I don't want to feel like this. That chest pain, just increases the anxiety that we're already feeling. Those depressed thoughts, your body gets heavy and you begin to have more symptoms that just make you feel worse, right? It doesn't have to be your identity, but pay attention because it is a signal, right, that something is off. Something was off with Elijah. A lot of us, a lot of what happened to him, was his own doings even. We've all been guilty of that too. So this week, I want to give you 5 things that we do that lead to anxiety and depression, okay? Number 1, we run ourselves into the ground. Straight from the story, he ran till he came to Beersheba in Judah. Now, what's significant, geography tells us that is 120 miles. I will do the math. That is 5 marathons. Anybody ever ran a marathon before? Because if you have, you're bad. Did you get paid for that? Because why else would you do it? Just sponsored, right? A weekend warrior out here running. Hold the applause because I have never run a marathon, certainly not a 5K. Both of my children's fathers are or were runners. I was not taking off after them. I was the cheerleader, even standing there with the Dixie cups to help them, feel like I was right there understanding the need. All of us can do the same understanding, though, with running at a pace that you cannot sustain. You can't even slow down. It gets to a point. It's getting to the, too late to slow down when you're already feeling the symptoms. Too many days working, too many weekends out drinking, too much spending money, you don't have. Your bank account is out here too, just running, isn't it? Too many nights, we're not sleeping, I should say, actually. Too many days hustling, right? All the type A people trying to get a success. Rick Ross, right? Great song. Hustling, right? Every day I'm hustling every day. I'm like, every day, Rick Ross? Really? Every day we're hustling? It's only Thursday and I'm already exhausted. But the point is, we're overwhelmed though. And it's the anxiety and the depression that's getting us to feel, even more of the symptoms, that we're already feeling. So it's just, more of the same. So, but the hustle and grind like Elijah did, ran himself into the ground. We instead were trying to walk, we're told to, the pace of grace, right? Here is number 2. We isolate ourselves from community. Now, I bet you're going to start thinking of people you stopped calling. Even think of people that have called you and you dodged them or blocked them. Or you got tired of hearing them saying that they were praying for you or they're there for you. They've been reaching out, but you're too busy to listen to what they have to say, even when it might actually help you. Elijah did that in the story, too. He reached a point where he removed a trusted friend, from his life right before he goes into the wilderness. So you get so worried in the hustle and the struggle, wondering if you got what it takes to get into the fight, let alone win. You gotta hang on to your entourage, though. The coach, the sparring partners, your family. Take the hype man. In fact, take 2 of them. Don't go anywhere, without them is my point. Don't go alone, because that is when the mind goes dark. When you're isolated, your thoughts can get scary even. A lot of you know God, and a lot of you are making a difference, but a lot of you stepped away from community, though, too. Held up the hand like, I'm good, right? But haven't you realized that in the real world, it's a spiritual battle? Don't you think, well, I don't want to be a burden? I don't want you to think that, because you are not a burden. You're not a burden to God, and you're not a burden to God's people. He, in fact, has put people in your life, actually, to be your spiritual entourage. You're supposed to turn to each other and say, I am here to help. Here is number 3. We focus on the negative. This is for somebody. This is what you came for. This is your point, right? You focus on the negative. How many people choose to be optimistic? See, if you're not one of them people, then those are your people. If you are the pessimistic type, you don't even want to show up or participate. Look at you, just under your breath saying, they probably ain't going to call me anyways. We need each other, though. Even Elijah came to a point and said, I have had enough, Lord. It's like, had enough of what, Elijah? I mean, you're God's guy. You just called fire down from heaven, right? And you just defeated 850 false prophets. Had enough, really? By the way, there are only 2 prophets in the Bible that don't die, Enoch and Elisha. Yet we see how quickly even he begins to think dark thoughts when he's alone, and goes even more, downhill. We all do it, though. Life is so hard, God. It's just too much right now. Oh, don't you see me? My eyebrows are even too thin. Nobody loves me, or I hate my job. I pray for it, but now I hate it. I can't take it. Even start thinking, take my life. Lord, I don't want to live. A lot of us, struggle with that same moment that Elijah had. And it's the inability to process pain correctly. Let that hit us. It seems to be what must be done to help us understand that it's a process for the tension. It's a process for the struggle. Even the process for what God's doing. How many people choose to focus on the pain and not the benefits? Take mental breaks and pull away, from the negative and focus on the positives. We are told in Philippians that if anything is excellent, to focus on those things. If we could just remind ourselves that sometimes, understand that I get it. You're going to say, oh, but you don't understand. Life is this and that for me. And, I often have to even remind myself. So I do understand. Take hold of your thoughts, though, right? That's what God's words tell us. It's one thing we must have heard a few times at least, is that there is power in taking control of your focus, because even the anxious thoughts can get out of hand. The depressing thoughts too, they are not your label, remember. But if you go negative every time, you will begin to allow it to create your identity. Just like if a young person starts to believe, all that talk from their, friend group, everyone's saying, they're telling them about themselves, right? That you never, or you aren't, or you always, you can start to wear it. It's a trap. It leads to anxiety and depression, and sometimes even worse, like starting to begin to think that maybe it's true. Should I continue? Because I don't want to be here. Who they said I am, I don't want to be, It's a trap. What you need is some positive praise in your spirit delivered. Start reframing your words. Start saying and believing stuff. Like, you know what I think I am going to get out of this. I need to start telling myself, I think God is on my side. I think I can do all things, better things, because the I am is greater, and He is in me and you. He's greater than the world. He loves me and will help me do greater in the world, right? So when I want to, I can begin to change the words, the thoughts. I can begin to allow more positive to hit my spirit even. I can begin to feel and to believe what is actually told to us. I am blessed, I am chosen, I am forgiven. When you feel better, don't you think and see and do, better? Believe by faith, and in Him, you and me can begin the process. Whatever, that is for each one of us, right? We all have our individual stuff, but it starts with making a choice, is my point. Remember, you choose the forgiveness, you choose the change, the help, even the offered support. The first step to get out of where you don't want to be, right? You can, in fact, stop running yourself into the ground. Then here comes number 4. We compare ourselves to others. This might especially be for students, but really, it's for everybody. It may not seem so strange that Elijah also made this mistake of comparing himself, to the people before him. Because I do it, you do it, we all do it. The whole maybe look over the fence to see if the neighbor's, grass is greener. How many go, on IG or Facebook and see what someone has or is doing, if it's better or looks like they are having more fun than you and I are doing. It's playing, though, the comparison game. And that thinking will drive anyone mad. Why is that? I think it was Theodore Roosevelt that said, comparison is the thief of joy. I think comparison is the death of joy, because comparison kills contentment. Comparison will even kill your chance of having peace, right? When you live with a their grass is greener mentality, I wrote this thought down somewhere. It's, because no one takes your joy. You willingly surrender it. They didn't actually take it. You gave it to them. So don't become depressed because someone seems happier. Here is the good news. I will share with you what I have learned. God plus nothing is all that I need, and God plus all that I have is more than enough. My last point is number 5. We forget about God. This happened to Elijah too. He forgot about God, and this isn't unusual for people that live now because we see it all over the place, the fall away from their faith that people do. And maybe today might have felt like a last resort, like, let me go one more time to where I can hear from God. People are so confused about who they are and what their purpose is, confused about their God even. But if you ask a lot of people, especially the ones deep in depression, I have asked several people. I even thought of moments that I have struggled while putting, this topic together to share with you. I will ask again, though, how would you describe what it is you are feeling? Help me navigate through the things that I'm feeling. Maybe the best description I have heard that will help you, like it did me. Someone said, it feels like I am drowning. It feels like I just can't get out from where I am in. I almost drowned once. I have been in the ocean and went for waves that were above my skill level at the time. Let's just put it that way. Waves come in, surface waves, right? Many of us have, experienced that too. out in the waves, and a particular one comes and just wipes you out. That moment, you're like panicking under the tow as you struggle to get up and out the water as fast as you can, right? So you could breathe, right? Many have experienced what feel like I almost drowned moment, simply thinking I need some air. The reason why I choose to be very specific to describe this feeling to you is because even if you are not near this moment, we are told to have compassion, remember, empathy, for others. You will, at the very least, be in company with someone who is feeling this way, so you can reflect this conversation when it happens, and at least have a little more understanding how they feel at that moment, and offer support, even if it's just to listen to them. Encourage them that God is with us. They too can in fact breathe, to not be anxious, but to be thankful, and to ask God for what it is that they may need or feel, or the problem that they have. Whether or not they, divulge all the specifics to you and feel comfortable, they can give the request to Him so that they can have the peace, is my point. To take care of our minds and our hearts, of each other's when we get the opportunity, right? I want you to challenge yourself, though, this week. I want you to go through this list, the 5 points I have named. In fact, I want you to take a stress test even. Personal inventory, even we'll call it. Find out, ask, where am I at, God? Which one of these things do I feel or need? Which ones can I surrender? What areas in my life do I need to get right? In fact, let's pray this together. You can do it by yourself too, when you feel off, but because remember, it's not a decision. But if you come across a signal or find yourself all in your head, be gentle with yourself. Do not believe all the negative, and certainly don't fuel your negative thoughts, but be honest with yourself. Are you isolating yourself simply because you're afraid to let someone hold you accountable but love you too? Make a decision to draw closer to what will actually get you through it and even help you to conquer the battles. Take a step towards rethinking your patterns and behaviors. So let's say this together, or you say it in the quietness of your heart, and I'll say it. Dear God, I admit that I am struggling. I admit that I feel like I am in the pit. But I also admit that I have been doing a lot of it on my own. I have been leading a life that hasn't been very faithful. I have been running too hard, even though I know you have been asking me to slow down. I admit that I have pushed people away. I admit that I have been rehearsing the negative thoughts. I admit I compare myself to everybody else. I even admit that I sometimes forget about you, but not today. I believe you died for me. I believe that you have forgiven me. I believe that you can heal me in Jesus' name, that you can put my joy back in my life and even replenish what the enemy tried to steal right now, today. Amen. Go in boldness and encouragement today. God bless you, okay? All right. Bye, guys.